My name is Kennedy Russell and I am 31 years old. That Thanksgiving in Kansas City should have been a night of celebration. I walked into my parents' house carrying news I had dreamed of sharing for years. I had just gotten engaged to Justin, and after 5 years of rejection letters and near misses, I had finally landed a book deal with a New York publisher. My heart raced as I stepped through the door, clutching a gift I had spent weeks creating for the family. But deep down, I knew what was waiting for me. My family has always had a way of making me feel invisible, no matter what I achieved. The dinner table was set, the turkey was golden, and everyone was already gathered. My older brother Ethan, 35, sat at one end, his phone out as he talked about his latest software launch. My younger sister Madison, 27, was at the other end, her designer dress perfectly pressed as she sipped wine and laughed with our mother Catherine. My father David was carving the turkey, barely looking up when I entered. Mom glanced at me, her lips pursed. "You are late, Kennedy," she said, her tone sharp. I swallowed hard, forcing a smile. "Traffic was bad," I said, setting my gift on the side table. I had brought a hand-painted family portrait, something I had worked on for weeks, pouring my heart into every brushstroke. I thought maybe, just maybe, this time they would see my effort. Growing up in Kansas City, I was the middle child, always caught between Ethan's brilliance and Madison's charm. Ethan was the golden boy, a software engineer who had launched his own tech startup by 28. My parents could not stop bragging about him. "He is going places," Dad would say, his voice full of pride. Madison was the princess, working in finance at a prestigious firm, her life polished and perfect. "She always knows how to impress people," Mom would gush. Me, I was just Kennedy, the one who faded into the background no matter how hard I tried. I loved writing, pouring my soul into stories, but to my parents, it was not a real career. "Writing is a hobby, not a job," Mom would say, her voice dismissive. Dad would nod, adding, "Your brother has a stable income. Your sister is climbing the corporate ladder. When are you going to do something practical?" I spent years trying to prove them wrong. When my grandfather Robert, Mom's dad, got sick 5 years ago, I was the one who stepped up. I drove him to every chemo appointment, sat with him during treatments, and made sure he took his meds. Ethan was too busy with his startup, and Madison claimed her finance job left no time. I did not mind at first. Grandpa was kind, a retired history professor with stories that made me feel seen. But when I mentioned it to Mom, she just shrugged. "That is what family does, Kennedy," she said. "No thank you. No recognition." I also took on organizing family events. When Madison turned 25 2 years ago, I spent weeks planning her birthday party, booking the venue, picking her favorite flowers, and designing invitations. I juggled it all while working freelance writing gigs that barely paid the bills. Madison showed up in a new dress, accepted the praise, and never said a word of thanks. Mom beamed at her, saying, "You deserve all this, sweetheart." I stood in the corner, cleaning up plates, feeling like a ghost. When Ethan's startup hit a rough patch 3 years ago, I stayed up late editing his investor pitches, sacrificing my own deadlines. He got funding, and Dad threw a barbecue to celebrate, toasting his success. My name was not mentioned once. The worst part was how they would call me whenever they needed something. "Kennedy, can you handle Grandpa's appointment? Kennedy, the family reunion needs organizing." I always said yes, thinking it would make them see my worth. But it never did. Now, at Thanksgiving, I walked into the dining room with my gift tucked under my arm. I set it on the table, my hands trembling slightly. "I made this for everyone," I said, unwrapping the painting. It was a portrait of our family, capturing a moment from a trip we had taken to the Ozarks years ago, back when things felt less strained. I had spent hours getting the details right, the way the light hit Dad's face, the curve of Mom's smile. Mom glanced at it, her expression neutral. "That is nice, Kennedy," she said, then turned to Ethan. "Did you bring those contracts you mentioned?" Ethan nodded, pulling out a folder, and launched into a story about his latest deal. Madison leaned over, barely looking at the painting. "Cute," she said, her tone dismissive. "But we do not really have wall space for it." My chest tightened, but I forced myself to stay calm. Dad did not even comment, just kept slicing the turkey. Grandpa, sitting quietly in his chair, reached out and touched the frame. "You made this, Kennedy?" he asked, his voice warm. I nodded, grateful for his attention. "It is beautiful," he said, his eyes crinkling with a smile. But before I could respond, Mom cut in. "Let us not get sidetracked," she said. We need to eat before everything gets cold. I sat down, my hands gripping the edge of the table. The painting was pushed to the side, forgotten as the conversation moved on. Ethan was talking about his software, his voice confident, and Mom and Dad hung on every word. Madison chimed in about her latest promotion, and Mom clapped her hands. "That is my girl," she said, beaming. I sat there, silent, feeling the familiar ache of being overlooked. I took a deep breath, trying to summon the courage to share my news. "Everyone," I started, my voice steady. "I have something important to tell you." But before I could finish, Mom interrupted. "Hold on, Kennedy," she said, waving her hand. "Your brother was just getting to the good part. Go ahead, Ethan." He launched into another story, and I sank back in my chair, my words stuck in my throat. I glanced at Grandpa, who gave me a small, encouraging nod. But the rest of the table was focused on Ethan, their faces lit with interest. I waited for him to finish, my heart pounding. When he finally paused, I tried again. "So, I wanted to share something," I said, my voice a little louder this time. But Madison cut in, her tone sharp. "Can we talk about something actually interesting?" she said, smirking. "I just closed a huge deal at work. My boss says I am on track for a major promotion." Mom gasped, her eyes wide. "That is wonderful, sweetheart," she said, raising her glass. Dad nodded, toasting Madison's success. My stomach churned, but I kept my face neutral. The conversation rolled on, with Mom and Dad praising Ethan's leadership and Madison's ambition. I sat there, invisible once again, gripping my fork so tightly my knuckles turned white. This was supposed to be my moment, but as always, I was pushed aside. Grandpa tried to shift the topic, asking about my writing, but Mom brushed him off. "Let us not bore everyone with that," she said, her tone dismissive. Madison snickered, muttering under her breath. "Yeah, nobody cares about her little stories." That was it. Something inside me snapped. I set my fork down, the clatter cutting through their chatter. I had spent years being quiet, being the one who held everything together while they tore me apart. But not tonight. Tonight, I was done. "You know what," I said, my voice shaking but firm. "I am tired of this. Every single time I try to share something, you shut me down. You act like I do not exist unless you need something from me." The table went silent. Mom's eyes widened, her fork frozen midair. Madison scoffed, crossing her arms. Dad stared at me, his expression blank. Ethan leaned back, looking uncomfortable but saying nothing. "I was going to tell you I got engaged," I continued, my voice rising. "Justin proposed last month, and I said yes. I was also going to tell you I landed a book deal with Hartman Publishing in New York. A real deal, with a $75,000 advance. But clearly, none of that matters to you." Mom's face tightened, her lips pressing into a thin line. "Kennedy, do not make a scene," she said, her voice icy. "You always do this, turning everything into drama." Madison rolled her eyes, her smirk deepening. "Seriously, Kennedy?" she said. "A book deal? What, some vanity press? Nobody actually publishes your kind of writing." Her words stung, but I did not back down. "It is Hartman Publishing," I said, my voice steady now. "They are one of the top independent houses in the country. My editor thinks the book could hit bestseller lists. But you would not know that because you never asked." Dad finally spoke, his tone dismissive. "Kennedy, we appreciate your hobbies, but let us be realistic. Your brother runs a successful company. Your sister is making 6 figures. Writing is not the same." His words hit like a punch, but they also fueled something deeper. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. "Hobbies?" I said, my voice sharp. "I have been working toward this for years. While I was driving Grandpa to chemo, while I was organizing Madison's parties, while I was editing Ethan's pitches. I was building this career, and you never once acknowledged it." Mom set her fork down, her voice cutting. "You are being ridiculous, Kennedy," she said. "We have done plenty for you. You have a roof over your head, food on the table. Stop acting like a victim." Madison laughed, a harsh sound. "You are just jealous," she said. "You have always been jealous that we actually succeed while you sit around scribbling stories nobody wants to read." I felt tears prick my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. "You think I am jealous?" I said, my voice breaking. "I gave up a book deal 5 years ago, a smaller one, to take care of Grandpa when he got sick. I turned it down because none of you could be bothered to help. I spent months driving him to appointments, sitting with him through treatments, and you never said thank you. You just expected it. Grandpa's eyes met mine, his expression pained. Kennedy, he said softly, but I shook my head. And Madison's 25th birthday, I continued, turning to my sister. I spent 3 weeks planning that party. I booked the venue, designed the invitations, picked every single flower arrangement because I knew you loved peonies. You did not even say thank you. You just posted pictures on Instagram and took all the credit. Madison's face flushed, her smirk faltering. That is not fair, she snapped. I could have hired someone to do that. You chose to help. I laughed bitterly. I chose to help because I am family, I said. But you have never treated me like family. You have treated me like hired help. And Ethan, I said, turning to my brother. When your startup was failing 3 years ago, I stayed up until 3 a.m., editing your investor pitches. I missed my own deadlines to help you. And when you got funding, you did not even mention my name at the celebration. Ethan shifted in his seat, his face uncomfortable. Kennedy, I did not know you felt that way, he said, his voice quiet. I should have said something, but it is too late for that, I said. You all take, and I keep giving, hoping you will finally see me. But you do not. You never have. The room erupted. Madison stood, her voice sharp. You are twisting everything, Kennedy. You are acting like a martyr to make us look bad. Mom's voice rose, her tone furious. You are ungrateful, Kennedy, she said. We gave you everything, and this is how you repay us? By throwing a tantrum at Thanksgiving? Dad rubbed his temples, muttering, Let us not ruin the holiday over this. But Grandpa stood, leaning heavily on his cane. You should all be ashamed, he said, his voice firm. Kennedy has been the backbone of this family for years, and you have treated her like she is invisible. She deserves better than this. Mom turned on him, her face red. Dad, stay out of this, she snapped. This is not your business. He is my grandfather, and he is the only one who has ever seen me, I said, my voice breaking. You have spent my entire life favoring Ethan and Madison, and I am done trying to earn your approval. I turned toward the door, my hands trembling. Madison called after me, her voice mocking. Where are you going, Kennedy? Running away like always? I stopped, turning back to face them. I am not running, I said. I am choosing myself for once. You want to know what is useless? Spending my life trying to win the love of people who will never give it. I am done. Grandpa's voice cut through the chaos. Kennedy, wait, he said, his tone pleading. But I could not stay. I grabbed my coat and walked out into the cold Kansas City night, the door slamming behind me. My heart pounded as I got into my car, my hands shaking so badly I could barely grip the steering wheel. I sat there for a moment, the weight of what I had just done crashing over me. I had spent 31 years trying to be enough for them, bending over backward to earn their approval. And in one night, I had burned it all down. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. Kennedy, come back inside. You are embarrassing yourself. I stared at the message, then turned off my phone. I was not going back. Not tonight. Not ever. I drove through the dark streets, my mind racing. Part of me felt guilty, like I had overreacted. But a louder part of me felt free, like I had finally said the words I had been holding in for years. I did not know where I was going at first, but then I realized. Kristen, my best friend since college, the one person who had always believed in me. I pulled up to her apartment, my hands still shaking, and knocked on her door. Kristen opened the door before I could knock a second time, her face full of concern. Kennedy? She said, pulling me inside. What happened? Are you okay? I nodded, though my throat was tight. I just walked out on my family, I said, my voice shaking. I told them I am done trying to earn their approval. She guided me to her couch, her hand on my shoulder. Sit down, tell me everything. I sank into the cushions, the whole story spilling out. The painting they dismissed, the engagement and book deal they interrupted, the way Mom called me useless, Madison's mockery, Dad's indifference. Kristen listened, her jaw tightening with every detail. When I finished, she squeezed my hand. Kennedy, you were not wrong, she said firmly. They have taken you for granted for years. What you did tonight took courage. But I feel guilty, I admitted. Like maybe I overreacted. Kristen shook her head, her eyes fierce. You did not overreact. They called you useless. They dismissed your engagement and your book deal like they were nothing. That is not family, Kennedy. That is cruelty. Her words hit hard, grounding me. I had known Kristen since we were roommates at the University of Kansas. She had been there through every rejection letter, Every late night when I doubted myself. She was the one who celebrated when I got my first freelance check, who proofread my manuscript at 2 a.m., who reminded me I was worth more than my family believed. My phone buzzed on the coffee table. A text from Mom. "Kennedy, you are being dramatic. Come home and apologize. We can talk this through like adults." I showed Kristen, and she snorted. "Dramatic?" she said. "She is the one who called you useless at dinner." Another text came through, this time from Madison. "You always make everything about you, Kennedy. We did not mean it like that. Stop being so sensitive." I felt anger flare in my chest. "They do not even see what they did wrong," I said. Kristen leaned forward, her voice steady. "They are trying to guilt you into coming back. Do not let them. You deserve better than this." I stared at my phone, my finger hovering over Mom's contact. Part of me wanted to call her, to explain, to make her understand, but I knew it would not change anything. It never had. I opened my phone and blocked Mom's number, then Madison's. My fingers hesitated over Dad's contact, but his silence at dinner had hurt just as much as their words. I blocked him too. Kristen watched, her expression supportive. "Good," she said. "You do not owe them anything." A few hours later, my phone rang. Ethan. I almost did not answer, but curiosity got the better of me. I picked up, my voice guarded. "What do you want, Ethan?" "Kennedy, I am sorry," he said, his voice soft. "I should have spoken up tonight. I did not realize how much you have been doing for us, how much we have taken you for granted." I listened, my heart conflicted. Ethan had never been as cruel as Mom or Madison, but his silence had been its own betrayal. "I appreciate that," I said, "but it is too late. I have spent years trying to prove myself to you all, and I am not doing it anymore." He paused, then said, "I understand. I hope we can talk someday." I did not respond, just hung up and stared at my phone. Part of me wanted to believe him, but I knew words were not enough. Kristen came back from the kitchen with 2 mugs of tea. "You okay?" she asked. I nodded, taking the mug. I blocked Mom, Dad, and Madison. Ethan just called to apologize, but I am not ready to forgive him. Kristen sat beside me, her voice gentle. "You do not have to forgive anyone until you are ready, and you do not owe them your time or energy." Over the next few days, I stayed at Kristen's apartment, trying to process everything. My phone buzzed with calls and texts from family, but I ignored them all. Mom left a voicemail, her voice tight. "Kennedy, this is childish. We are your family. You need to come home and work this out." I deleted it without listening to the whole thing. Madison sent a long text, her words dripping with false concern. "Kennedy, we are worried about you. You are overreacting to a misunderstanding. Let us talk like adults." I blocked her number again, my resolve hardening. Dad sent a single message. "You are disappointing us, Kennedy." I stared at it for a long moment, then deleted it. Their words no longer had the power to hurt me the way they once did. Kristen checked in on me every day, bringing coffee, making meals, and pulling me out for walks when I got too lost in my thoughts. One evening, we sat on her balcony, the city lights stretching out before us. "You are doing the right thing," she said, her voice warm. "I know it does not feel like it right now, but you are choosing yourself. That is brave." I nodded, feeling a weight begin to lift. For the first time in my life, I was not bending over backward to make them happy. I was building a life that was mine. A week after Thanksgiving, Grandpa called. I hesitated, then answered. "Grandpa?" I said, my voice cautious. "Kennedy," he said, his tone gentle. "I wanted to check on you. Are you okay?" I felt tears prick my eyes. "I am okay," I said. I could not stay there anymore." "I know," he said, "and I am proud of you for walking away. Your mother, my daughter, she has always been hard on you. I wish I had spoken up sooner." His words meant more than I could say. "Thank you, Grandpa," I said, my voice breaking. He paused, then added, "I am not taking sides, Kennedy, but I see you. I have always seen you." We talked for an hour, and when I hung up, I felt lighter. Grandpa was the one person in my family who had never made me feel invisible. Kristen came in, saw my face, and smiled. "Good call?" she asked. I nodded. "The best." That night, I lay in Kristen's guest room, staring at the ceiling. I thought about Mom's voicemails, Madison's texts, Ethan's apology. Part of me still felt guilty, like I had abandoned them, but I reminded myself of what Kristen had said. They had abandoned me first, years ago, With every dismissal, every comparison, every moment they made me feel like I was not enough. I had spent 31 years trying to earn their love. Now, I was choosing my own. The next morning, I woke up to a text from Justin. I heard what happened. Are you okay? Want to talk? I smiled, realizing I had not told him the full story yet. I called him, and he listened without interrupting, his support steady and unwavering. You did the right thing, he said when I finished. I am proud of you. His words filled a space I did not know was empty. I was building a new family, one that saw me for who I was. 3 months after Thanksgiving, I sat in a coffee shop in downtown Kansas City, my laptop open, reviewing the contract from Hartman Publishing. My editor, Laura Chen, had sent the final draft that morning, and I could barely believe what I was reading. The advance was $75,000, with a 2-book deal and marketing support that could push my novel onto bestseller lists. I signed my name at the bottom, my hand steady, and hit send. This was real. My career was finally taking off. Justin met me for lunch that afternoon, his smile wide as I told him the news. You did it, he said, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. I am so proud of you. We spent the next hour talking about our future, about the apartment we wanted to buy, about the life we were building together. For the first time in months, I felt light, unburdened by the weight of my family's expectations. That evening, Kristen came over with champagne, insisting we celebrate. To Kennedy Russell, she said, raising her glass, the woman who chose herself and is killing it. I laughed, clinking my glass against hers. Her support had been everything. She had let me stay at her place for 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, never once making me feel like a burden. Now, as we sat on her couch, I realized how much I had needed someone who believed in me without conditions. A week later, Justin and I started house hunting. We found a 2-bedroom apartment in Westport, a neighborhood I had always loved, with exposed brick walls and big windows that let in morning light. The lease was more than I had ever paid, but with my book advance and Justin's steady income as a graphic designer, we could afford it. Signing the lease felt like a victory, a tangible proof that I was moving forward. My family's absence left a strange quiet in my life. I heard updates through my cousin Jenna, who still kept in touch. Mom had tried to organize the annual summer barbecue in June, Jenna told me over coffee one afternoon, but without you it was a disaster. She could not figure out the catering and half the family did not even show up. I nodded, unsurprised. I had been the one running those events for years, coordinating every detail while they took the credit. Jenna also mentioned Madison. She lost a huge client at work, she said, her voice low. Apparently, her attitude finally caught up with her. The client complained to her boss, and now she is on thin ice. I did not feel joy hearing that, but I did not feel guilty either. Madison's problems were her own, not mine to fix. Ethan, according to Jenna, had been quieter, pulling back from family gatherings. I think he feels bad about what happened, Jenna said. But he has not reached out to you? I shook my head. He called once after Thanksgiving, but I have not heard from him since. Jenna sighed. Your parents are struggling too. Without you organizing everything, they are lost. Mom keeps complaining to relatives about how things fell apart. I took a sip of my coffee, my chest tight. Part of me felt a flicker of satisfaction, but mostly I just felt tired. I had spent so long holding that family together, and they had never appreciated it. Now they were learning what it was like without me. That night my phone rang. Ethan. I stared at the screen, debating whether to answer. Finally I picked up, my voice guarded. What do you want, Ethan? Kennedy, I know you blocked Mom and Madison, but I wanted to reach out again, he said. I have been thinking a lot about what happened. You were right. We took you for granted, and I am sorry. I listened, my jaw tight. Words are easy, Ethan, I said. You have had 3 months to reach out. Why now? Because I miss you, he said, his voice breaking, and because I realized how much you did for us. Mom is falling apart without you, and Madison, she is not handling things well. I am not asking you to come back. I just wanted you to know I am sorry. His apology felt genuine, but it also felt too late. I appreciate that, I said, but I am not coming back. I have spent my whole life trying to earn your approval, and I am done. There was a long silence, then he said, I understand. Just know that I am here if you ever want to talk. I hung up, my hands trembling. Kristen, who had been listening from the kitchen, came over and sat beside me. You okay? She asked. I nodded. He apologized again, but it does not change anything. She squeezed my shoulder. You do not owe him forgiveness, Kennedy. Not until you are ready. Over the next few weeks, I threw myself into my work. My editors sent notes on my manuscript, and I revised tirelessly, determined to make the book the best it could be. Justin helped me set up a small office in our new apartment, a corner by the window where I could write without distractions. One afternoon, Grandpa called. Kennedy, I wanted to let you know I am proud of you, he said, his voice warm. I heard about your book deal. That is incredible. Thank you, Grandpa, I said, my throat tight. He paused, then added, Your mother asked me to talk to you, to convince you to come back, but I told her no. You made the right choice, and I support you. His words meant everything. He was the only one in my family who had never made me feel small, and knowing he stood by me gave me strength. As summer turned to fall, my life began to take shape. Justin and I settled into our apartment, filling it with furniture we picked out together. Kristen became a constant presence, stopping by for dinner or dragging me out for girls' nights when I worked too hard. Grandpa visited once a month, bringing old history books and stories that made me laugh. I was building a family, one that chose me back. My book, titled Breaking Free, was set to release in 6 months. Laura, my editor, called one afternoon with news that made my heart race. We are getting incredible early buzz, she said. Bookstores are already placing orders, and a few major reviewers want advance copies. This could be big, Kennedy. I hung up, tears streaming down my face. Justin found me on the couch, pulled me into a hug, and whispered, You deserve all of this. That evening, I sat on our balcony, looking out at the city lights. My phone buzzed with another message from Mom, one I had not blocked on this new number Jenna must have given her. Kennedy, we need to talk. You are still part of this family. I stared at the message, then deleted it. I was not part of their family anymore. I had built my own, with people who saw my worth, and for the first time in my life, that was enough. 14 months after that Thanksgiving, I stood in a small garden on the outskirts of Kansas City, ready to marry Justin. The air was warm, the scent of lavender filling the space, and the late afternoon sun cast golden light across the rows of white chairs. I had chosen a simple ivory dress, nothing extravagant, and Justin looked at me like I was the only person in the world. We had planned a small wedding, just the way we wanted it, intimate, meaningful, and filled only with people who truly saw us. Kristen sat in the front row, her eyes already glistening with tears. She had been my maid of honor, helping me pick the dress, plan the menu, and calm my nerves when doubt crept in. Beside her sat Grandpa Robert, 82 years old now, in his best suit, leaning on his cane but smiling wider than I had seen in years. You look beautiful, Kennedy, he had whispered when he saw me earlier. I am so proud of the woman you have become. My family, Mom, Dad, Ethan, and Madison were not invited. I had not spoken to any of them since I blocked their numbers over a year ago. There had been moments when I wondered if I should reach out, if I was being too harsh. But every time I thought about it, I remembered Mom's voice calling me useless, Madison's mocking tone, Dad's indifference. I remembered years of being invisible, and I knew I had made the right choice. The ceremony was short but heartfelt. Justin and I had written our own vows, and as I stood facing him, my hands trembling slightly, I spoke the words I had practiced 100 times. Justin, you have shown me what it means to be loved without conditions. You see me, you believe in me, and you have never once made me feel like I need to earn your affection. I promise to build a life with you that is filled with honesty, support, and joy. I promise to choose you every day, the way you have chosen me. His eyes were wet as he spoke his vows. Kennedy, the first time we met, I saw your strength. You have faced challenges I cannot imagine, and you have never let them break you. I promise to stand by you, to lift you up when you need it, and to remind you every day how extraordinary you are. I promise to be your partner, your best friend, and your biggest fan. When he slid the ring onto my finger, I felt a weight lift, like the past was finally behind me. Kristen cheered louder than anyone when we kissed, and Grandpa clapped, his smile wide and proud. The small crowd of 20 guests, mostly friends from college and Justin's family, erupted in applause. We walked down the aisle hand in hand, the sun setting behind us, and I felt a peace I had never known. This was my family now. The people who had shown up, who had celebrated me, who had never made me feel like I was too much or not enough. The reception was held in a rustic barn nearby, decorated with string lights and wildflowers. Kristen gave a toast, her voice steady despite the emotion in her eyes. To Kennedy, she said, raising her glass. for having the courage to walk away from people who did not deserve her, and for showing all of us what it means to choose yourself. I love you, and I am so proud to call you my best friend. I wiped my eyes, overwhelmed by her words, and clinked my glass against hers. As we danced under the stars, Justin pulled me close, his voice soft in my ear. "Are you happy?" he asked. I nodded, my chest full. "I am," I said. "For the first time in my life, I really am." The night felt perfect, untouched by the shadow of my past. But as I looked around at the faces of the people I loved, I thought about the journey that had brought me here. I had spent 31 years trying to win my family's approval, bending myself into shapes that did not fit, hoping one day they would see me. That Thanksgiving, when Mom called me useless and Madison dismissed my dreams, something inside me broke, but it also set me free. I learned that love should not come with conditions, that I did not have to shrink myself to make others comfortable. Walking away from my family was not easy. There were nights I cried, mornings I woke up wondering if I had made a mistake. But as the months passed, I realized I had not lost anything. I had gained everything. My book, Breaking Free, was released 2 months before the wedding. It climbed the bestseller lists faster than Laura, my editor, had predicted. Readers sent messages saying the story resonated with them, that it gave them the courage to set their own boundaries. One woman wrote, "Your book helped me leave a toxic relationship. Thank you for being brave enough to share your story." Those messages meant more to me than any praise from my family ever could. Kristen had been there through every step, from the first rejection letter to the book launch party she insisted on throwing. Grandpa had read the manuscript twice, his eyes misty as he told me how proud he was. Justin had been my steady support, reminding me on hard days that I was building something beautiful. These were the people who mattered, the ones who had shown up when it counted. I thought about my family sometimes, wondered if they had heard about the book, if Mom had seen the articles, if Madison felt any regret. Jenna, my cousin, had mentioned once that Mom tried to buy a copy but could not bring herself to read it. Ethan had reached out one more time, 6 months ago, leaving a voicemail I never returned. "I do not blame you for cutting us off," he said. "I just hope you are happy." I was, but not because of anything they had done. As the night wound down, Grandpa pulled me aside, his hand warm on mine. "Kennedy, I want you to know something," he said, his voice soft. "Your mother, she was not always like this. Life hardened her, made her focus on success and status. But that does not excuse what she did to you. You deserved better, and I am sorry I did not stand up for you sooner." I squeezed his hand, tears slipping down my cheeks. "You stood up for me when it mattered, Grandpa. That is enough." Justin found me a few minutes later, wrapping his arms around me as we stood on the edge of the garden. "Ready to start our life?" he asked, his voice warm. I nodded, looking back at the barn where Kristen was laughing with friends, where Grandpa sat contentedly watching the celebration. This was my life now. A life I had built on my own terms, with people who loved me without conditions. As we drove away that night, the city lights twinkling in the distance, I felt a clarity I had never known. I did not need my family's approval to be whole. I did not need their validation to know my worth. I had learned the hardest lesson of all, that sometimes the greatest act of love is choosing yourself. And I had finally, truly, chosen me. That's Kennedy's story. A 31-year-old writer who spent her entire life being the invisible middle child, who sacrificed a book deal to care for her sick grandfather while her siblings were too busy, who organized family events, edited her brother's pitches, and held everything together without a single thank you, who finally snapped when her mother called her the most useless child in the family at Thanksgiving dinner, who walked away and built a life so successful that her book became a bestseller and her wedding was filled only with people who truly loved her. Now I want to hear from you. Where are you watching this from? Drop your city and country in the comments below. I love seeing how far Kennedy's story has traveled and connecting with people from all over the world. Hit that like button if this story resonated with you. Share it if you have ever been the family member who does everything but gets no recognition, the one who is only remembered when they need something. And subscribe for more true stories about people who chose themselves over toxic families and never looked back. And here's my final question for you. Kennedy blocked her entire family except her grandfather. Do you think she was right to cut them all off? Or should she have given her brother Ethan another chance since he apologized? Let me know what you think, because sometimes the hardest part of setting boundaries is knowing where to draw the line. Thanks for watching. Remember, You do not have to keep proving yourself to people who refuse to see your worth. Sometimes walking away is not giving up, it is choosing yourself. See you in the next one.